back with breaking news while you were sleeping. The Hornets are seriously engaged in trade talks with multiple teams, aggressively pursuing star point guard LaMelo Ball. According to Shams, trade talks surrounding Ball have picked up steam, and a potential trade could develop in the next 24 to 48 hours. Ball, 3 years left on his contract, eligible, though, to sign a 2-year, $119.2 million extension on Monday, July 6th. While much of his time with the Hornets has been marred by injury, LaMelo Ball is one of 3 players to average at least 20 points per game and 7 assists per game in each of the last 5 seasons. The other 2 names you might have heard of. How about Nikola Jokic and Luka Doncic? Does that do anything? Does that do anything for you? Ball helped lead the Hornets to a 44-38 record last season, their best since 2015-16. Speaking of players on the move, we got some sneaky big news for you. The Detroit Pistons, 1 seed, Eastern Conference, trading backup big man Isaiah Stewart. Beef Stew goes to Memphis for 3 future second-round picks. Stewart has 2 years and $30 million remaining on his contract, with a team option for 2027-28. Wendy, I want to start with you. It does feel like a little bit of a heart and soul move leaving Detroit. I think that marriage of city and player certainly worked with a toughness there for the Pistons. But what else does this move mean for Detroit?
For only draft picks in return.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Why? Because this is a salary cap move to open up cap space because they're chasing somebody. The Lakers were aware that this type of move was coming. It's one of the reasons why they increased their offer to get Reeves done. And now there's other potential targets out there. So they were attached to Tyler Hero. If Tyler Hero didn't end up going to Milwaukee, he could have ended up in Detroit. They were trying potentially to get Austin Reeves. He stays. Who is next up on the list? A player to watch is Kawhi Leonard with the LA Clippers. The Kawhi Leonard situation is so prickly and so unusual. Here's why. He is coming off of a season where he was spectacular. Okay, he had one of the best years of his career, and he's had some good years in his career, Andy.
Sure.
One of his best years of his career last season. In a normal set of circumstances, a player of this quality coming off this type of season with 1 year on his contract would be extended very quickly. However, I'm not even sure that the league will allow the Clippers to extend this contract because they're investigating whether this contract is in fact illicit. And so the other thing is, I'm not even sure the league will allow them to trade Kawhi Leonard until there is resolution to this investigation, which 4 weeks ago, Adam Silver said was time to end. So the league is waiting there saying what is going to happen with Kawhi Leonard. But if he is cleared and everything is normal, the Clippers have the choice to extend his contract or trade him. And if they trade him, Detroit wants to be in line.
I heard a big sigh from my right, screen left, from Bobby Marks.
I feel like it's the summer of 2019 again.
How so?
Well, remember, we were all waiting for Kawhi Leonard to sign with the Clippers, the Lakers, was it the Raptors, and now we've kind of come full circle 7 years later for a player who just finished playing at a high level. And as Brian said, walks into the last year of his contract for a Clipper team that has gotten a lot younger when they traded James Harden for Darius Garland. And how does Kawhi Leonard fit into the situation? As Brian mentioned, the Detroit Pistons, why does it make sense? Because we're talking about financial windows. Eventually, it's going to get expensive with their roster. They can do it right now before they have to pay Asar Thompson and Jalen Duren and players like that. Here's the time to do a deal like that if something like that makes sense.
It's a Pistons team, though, that did have to walk that line with Malik Beasley, right? In terms of just being under investigation, not that Kawhi himself is, but the contract is at the center of this investigation with the Clippers. I want to ask Tim what it says, and that because is just a massive question mark that we're not qualified to jump in on just yet. But Tim, the moves that the Pistons are at least forecasting or tipping their hand at, what does it say about them going all in the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, I mean, the Pistons are preparing to throw a haymaker in the trade market, whether that's Kawhi, whether that's another star. And this is a Pistons team that had the ability to do this at the trade deadline. There was a lot of people around the league looking at the Pistons saying, hey, are they going to push their chips in? They've got all their picks. They got the financial flexibility. Trajan Langdon decided at the trade deadline to stand pat. He wanted to evaluate this young team that ended up winning 60 games, being the top seed in the Eastern Conference, and then not being ready for the playoffs. Struggled to get out of the first round, got bounced in the second round. He evaluated it, and the determination is they need a co-star alongside Cade Cunningham to become a bona fide contender. They're preparing to go get that co-star again, whether that's Kawhi or whether that's another star.
From a basketball perspective, Wendy, Kawhi and Cade equals what?
They need somebody else alongside Cade to take off the scoring pressure and the creation pressure. There's a number of players potentially available who can do that. And I would just say this. The Knicks were so dominant in the Eastern Conference this year that they got teams that were ahead of them in the standings, Detroit and Boston, saying, we got to make moves to match the Knicks.
I mean, it was a Pistons team that held its own in the regular season against the Knicks, with the size, with the toughness, but we saw end-of-game basketball. We saw end-of-game basketball in the playoffs where that creation was just lacking.
You hit it right on the head. I mean, you got to get a closer. You got to get another closer besides Cade Cunningham, and I think you kind of saw that offense stall out there. I thought there was two needs for them, another playmaker to play alongside Cade, and then certainly a veteran to be able to give you that scoring punch in late games.
Speaking of scoring, it's time for get up and goal. Let's go ahead with our friend Ray. Our Shams Charania reporting that the Celtics are actively engaged in trade talks surrounding Jaylen Brown following their failed attempt to acquire Giannis. Wendy, I want to start with you. The latest. What is the latest that you're hearing about Brown in the C's?
Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of teams who were looking at Jaylen Brown's availability, waiting to see if the Celtics were going to win the Giannis Antetokounmpo bidding. When they didn't, and Brad Stevens came out after the draft and said a lot of wonderfully nice things about Jaylen Brown, but none of them were, we're not going to trade him, and openly said he met with Jaylen Brown and had what he said was an honest conversation with him. I don't think he told him, and I think he told him, like, you could be traded. So I don't think it's a guarantee, but I think the Celtics believe that they need to change their roster and are actively looking for a way to use Jaylen Brown to do so.
Tim, are the Celtics making a mistake trying to move on from Jaylen?
I mean, they're too far down the road at this point. And look, this comes on the heels of Jaylen Brown coming out after they got bounced in the first round and saying this was the favorite season of his career. Basically saying, hey, I loved being the man while Tatum was out. I loved having the ball in my hands. I loved everything revolving around me. You know, that could be part of the calculus here, but the simple fact of the matter is, typically when you have an all-NBA player in his prime being traded, one, the franchise is being forced to do so. Two, it's triggering a rebuild. This is the opposite of that. How do you trade this caliber of player and get better? You don't see getting equal or better immediate value with this kind of player being moved very often.
Bobby, is there any chance? Now, there's been some massaging of the comments that Tim references. Like, no, Jaylen meant that we were underdogs. We were counted out because Jason Tatum was hurt all season. That's what he meant by this being his favorite season. Is there any chance that this situation gets resolved between Brown and Boston?
Well, I mean, there's always a chance. I just think we're down the road, and it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle here. I mean, having been involved with players whose names been in trade talks and rumors, it's an uncomfortable situation. Fortunately, there's no games going on right now. I mean, you can imagine Brad Stevens walking into the gym right now, and Boston's getting ready for shoot-around. That's the good news as far as we're the offseason here. Here's a player, though, 3 years, $183 million left on his contract, and is a top 10 player in the NBA. You're not getting the return of a Giannis. Mm-hmm. Now, the question is it multiple players? Is it, you're not going out there just building up your draft pick equity. You're not doing that with Jason Tatum and Derek White and Peyton Pritchard on your roster here. So that's going to be the biggest question: is this salvageable? And if not, what direction do the Celtics go with?
Who should be trying to trade for Brown right
now? I consider Portland the biggest wild card this summer, and not just for the Jaylen Brown situation here, just because they have a new owner. And having